Hello everyone, we are doing a build from maybe my favorite cartoon series. Today we are doing Steven's Beach House from Steven Universe, and we are also doing some unique rooms in the basement for each one of the crystal gems. So this is a fun build. It's like pretty normal up top, and on the bottom it's really fun and magical. And this build actually was inspired by the new Clutter kit that came out. What was that called? Everyday Clutter? Something like that. But this was inspired by that because I think that's one of the most wonderfully charming things about Steven Universe is all the small little toys and gadgets and things like that are sitting around their home. All little Easter eggs they have mixed in there, like Steven playing a Zelda game on his GameCube. So I thought this would be a really great build to try out some of the items from the new Clutter kit. And yeah, other than that, it's a pretty chill build. It's pretty straightforward, and downstairs, like I said, we try and do some really fun stuff for each one of the crystal gems. The first thing that I was working on for this build was, honestly, on the outside, it's a very sort of like flat building, and that's really hard to translate into The Sims. I think towards the end, you'll see we kind of get something that looks pretty cute, but it was really hard to make something that looked interesting from the exterior because it doesn't have a lot of architectural detail to it. Another thing that was really hard to figure out actually was Steven's bedroom. So this house is primarily using reference images from the majority of the series. So if you watch the series, Steven Universe Future has, wait, is that what it's called? What's the last season called? Whatever the last season is when Steven's grown up, it features a new house. Basically, they completely renovated their house. They have a whole second floor that's just for Steven, versus what we see in the rest of the series, which is this sort of like split level kind of design where you can see Steven's room from the living space. So I wanted to try and make that the best I could. Here were the kind of holdups. First, platforms in The Sims, very handy, still to this day, pretty glitchy. The second issue was that the bathroom of the home is actually under Steven's bedroom, and you can't put a room under a platform. So that was a big issue that I was running into. And then finally, in two different areas, this house actually features like two sets of built-in shelves. And, The Sims doesn't really do that. So I had to try and be creative and figure a way that I could create built-ins in two different scenarios. So we'll see as we kind of go along how I end up solving that. But you can see here what we're working on is just the basic layout. There's not a lot to work with. Again, on the exterior, we just basically have the front door, a window in the front, and 3 windows on the side. That's it. So I did end up putting Steven's bedroom on the second floor. And I really was trying to avoid that. My goal initially was to have everything visible on the same floor because that's how it is in the show. And I feel like seeing Steven's bedroom is so crucial to kind of translating the feel of this space. It's like such a identifiable moment in the Steven Universe house. So I was really trying to avoid having it on the second floor. But I think as things kind of come together, we'll see a couple different viewpoints here. And there is a way to play this lot where you can see everything all at once, and it doesn't distract from gameplay. Another thing that's really important to me is that when you're moving around the space, here we can actually see one of the issues with platforms. So one of the things I was trying to do, and ultimately this works, but one of the things I was trying to do to create that sort of built-in look of the shelves that are above the couch here is I have the second floor, and then the bathroom is on one side on the first floor, and then I have this little platform underneath the second floor raised up with a half wall, and I put some shelves in there. And you could see that it created this really weird lighting scenario on the second floor. We're going to find out together how I solved that because ultimately I did. I think it was just by putting the platform all the way down. But yeah, we'll see in a little bit how I end up fixing that. Anyway, one of the things that's important to me is that if you are interested in playing in one of the lots that I worked on, I want it to be an easy experience for both you and your Sims. I really don't like playing in environments that are overly cluttered or overly busy or are overly affected by the use of move objects. So when I say that, I mean like sometimes, well, always, when you raise up objects to put them on a shelf, if they don't automatically like click to the grid on the shelf, once you put the walls down, those objects are just randomly floating there. And to me, during gameplay, if there's a lot of that, it's really distracting. And I wanted to avoid that as much as I possibly could for this lot, especially because the point was really for this to feel cluttered and lived in and cozy and like a nice little safe space to come cuddle up and watch some cute movie together or something. So I really wanted to avoid that. And then also, you can see here, we do have to use pillars a lot. That's part of the architecture of the original building. And so we do have to use pillars and spandrels and things like that a lot in this build to translate the look into The Sims 4. And sometimes that can be distracting as well. So I really just tried in the best way I could to limit the use of those types of things. So when you actually are playing on the slot, if you choose to download it, you know, you can get some nice screenshots or you can actually see your Sims and yeah, things like that. One of the things you may have noticed a bit ago was I originally had these really thick spandrels over the kitchen from the Snowy Escape Pack. Those are some of my favorite architectural objects to use because they're so thick, and that's like something that's missing in The Sims 4 is like thick walls, chunky pillars, and chunky spandrels. So I love that they came with Snowy Escape, and I originally had them running across the entire ceiling of the kitchen space because that's how it is in the show, but it was too distracting, and I ended up having to take that out completely and sort of sacrifice the authenticity of the space to make something that was a little bit more playable. And now, okay, we're doing a big jump. So, all right, so now we're in the sort of magic portal area of the Steven Universe household. And I wanted this to be functional in a couple different ways. So first off, I wanted it to feel as much like, of course, the space in the show as I could. Steven Universe's house is backed up to a huge mountain that has a lighthouse on top of it, and there's a big, beautiful statue behind the house. That's actually holding it in place. I could not create the statue in The Sims 4, but I could create some type of, you know, mountainous structure in the background. This house is created in Sulani from the Island Living expansion pack. And originally I was creating it on this cute little island, which I thought was perfect. I loved this lot until I found out on lots like this, if there is water on the lot, you can't make basements, which it was such a bummer because that was the whole point of this build. So in a little bit, I'm going to move to a different lot from here. But anyway, I created this huge kind of rocky structure behind this house as kind of a nod to the way this house shows up in Steven Universe. And we have those rocks both inside and outside. And then when we are inside the home, you can see we have a we have a platform in the middle there using the round walls, which does create a glitch in the basement, which is very annoying to me. But we have the structure in the middle, which is meant to kind of emulate the crystal portals from the show. And then I also used the Realm of Magic portal here. First off, I think visually it's really cool and it makes sense because this is how the gems get to their bedrooms in the show. But also it kind of adds an interesting gameplay element, and it sort of blends the world of the magic realm in The Sims 4 and the different abilities of the gems to teleport in the show. So I thought it was kind of a cool way to blend the two worlds together and add a bit of gameplay into this house if you are into that. And we're starting to work on Steven's bedroom here. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the magic portal area. So other things that I made use of is the crystals from the Realm of Magic pack. In the debug menu, we have a couple different color variations of those huge crystals that we can use. So I raised those up and put them all across the like rocky terrain of that space in the house. And then also in the debug menu of Realm of Magic is a handful of these like sort of glowing light objects. There is a cyan color one, a magenta color one, and a yellow color one. I've used these in a couple other builds, and I find them to be such a useful object, especially for magical environments, of course. And here I put them at the base of some of these crystals to make it seem like they're glowing from within. And then another little trick that I did here was I hid a bunch of lights inside the rocks as a way to make that space sort of have that eerie, mystical, cyan, blue, purpley glow that it has. I have in a couple of my recent builds been playing around with lighting and the lighting effects that you can get in game. And I think and we use it a lot in the basement of this build, which we'll see in a little bit. But I think it creates a really nice effect to change the color of these lights while in gameplay, and then going back into build mode and hiding them all over the place, because it just makes things feel really mystical, magical, and it hides your light source. So it's kind of like, it's good. It's good all around. And so here we can see we're almost finished with Steven's bedroom up on the second floor there. I'm going to start working on the bathroom that's right below his bedroom. One little trick I used here was these are the floor tiles from the, oh my gosh, what was it called? The Desert Luxe kit that came out. And when you put that tile down, it naturally has a really large tile pattern, which didn't really work because these are smaller environments. So in the kitchen and in the bathroom, all I did was, as I was putting the tile down, I just rotated it each time. And so it kind of created this effect where the tiles are only one tile wide instead, and they almost look a little rocky. Like they almost look a little like maybe they're misplaced, or maybe just like over time they've shifted a little bit. And it also, solved the issue of having a tile pattern that was too large for the space, but I still get the benefit of using the tile that I really like, the style of the tile that I really like within these spaces. And then here you can see I took out a ton of objects to get on the shelving units that we have here. So we have the other built-in solution on the right here in the front of the home. And then to get originally what I wanted to do was I was going to use the Move Objects cheat and raise up a bunch of these smaller clutter objects on top of the cabinets in the kitchen. But instead of doing that, I just used the Impossible shelf right above those cabinets and found a bunch of objects that I could place on top of the Impossible shelf instead. So it's nice because it adds a little sort of like extra layer of detail because we have the shelf up there. But then also it keeps it functional. So when the walls go down, those objects go down with them, which I love. And then here I'm using a little trick that I do in all of my builds. I make heavy use of debug objects, and the majority of them don't have collision built in, meaning when you place one of these massive rocks down, your Sims can probably just walk right through it. So what I usually do is use some type of fencing hidden kind of within the rock to block the Sims off from walking through it. Again, just to make the lot a little bit more realistic and playable. It doesn't always work, but I try and block off environments that Sims shouldn't be in. And then here under the steps, we are doing, we're adding a little room that's actually not in the show. I wanted to make something that was kind of a nod to the environment that Steven visits when he goes inside his friend Lion. So this is a little rose quartz room, maybe like a little shrine where Steven keeps all of the objects that are important to him that remind him of his mom. So this is under these stairs, and I will say this is not a room that's actually accessible. It's something that's more just for aesthetic, but we do kind of make it seem as though Sims can go in there. But we have a bunch of objects under here, of course, a bunch of roses and gemstones, but we also have the treasure chest that we see in that environment. And then you can see too, I put a little pet door there on the steps just to make it seem like Steven could crawl under there if he wanted to. But yeah, just a bunch of cute little objects under there, like a stack of CDs, a radio, and stuff like that. That might remind him of his parents and the life that they had together before he was born. And so now we're going to start working on some of these fantasy environments. So the first room we're working on is going to be Pearl's bedroom, or Pearl's chambers. And what I will say is that these absolutely take reference from the show, but these environments are pretty tough to recreate completely accurately because it's The Sims 4. So for Pearl's room, what I did was basically the entire room is a pool, and then we have these platforms kind of all the way throughout, and the entire room has cascading waterfalls around it. This is a debug object from the Island Living pack that I've also used in a couple of my builds. I love it because it has a really beautiful animation, and in this sort of scenario where we're using it here, it's really nice because I lifted it up from the pool level up to the floor above, and you can see it here a little bit. It cascades over top of the platforms, which is really nice. And those floating pillars that we have there are actually the side tables from the Desert Luxe kit, and I just levitated them at different levels to kind of make it seem like the platforms that she has in her actual room in the show. And then here we're working on Garnet's room. Garnet's room, okay, so I did a little research here. It's not actually known if this is Garnet's room, but this is a significant room that Garnet was in. The only room that we know for sure is Garnet's room was from a really early episode where Steven was going through a bunch of different trials to prove that he could be a crystal gem. and each of the gems sort of modified their room to put him through a specific trial. This room is prevalent throughout the show because this is where all of the bubbles are kept. When the gems bubble, damage gems, and store them there to be restored at a later date. So this is a significant room that is associated with Garnet, although not confirmed it's actually her room. Anyway, so some of the things we have going on here. In the center of the room, we have this molten hot cool pool. Well, not cool. We have this molten hot pool. And so to accomplish this and create this sort of like lava pit in the center of the room, I take this fire pit from the debug menu and I raise it up from the room below, which is really super effective because I get this really cool circular effect and you can still see the pool through it. And another way this is really helpful, you can see with the rocks. So by putting really harsh or specific lighting, colored lighting on the floor below and then raising objects up from that floor, the objects from the floor below will retain the lighting from that same floor. So the floor under this has super red lighting. All the lights under there are really bright and really red, and it gives us these really cool red rocks, even though the lights that I ultimately end up putting in the top floor aren't red at all. So this is a really cool trick that I like to use and really helped me out with all of these spaces, actually. And then we can see here, I'm raising up my interpretation of bubbled gems. I tried forever to find an object that was actually like circular and see-through that I could use as bubbles. And unfortunately, I couldn't find one. So I ended up using this glowing little light that I mentioned earlier from the Realm of Magic debug selection. And so we have these all around the rooms. And then this room has really cool vines, like wiry vines. Not vines. I mean, they're like, it's pulsing. It's part of the room. It's part of the cluster. But it has these like ropey objects that are descending from the ceiling. And I couldn't find a way to recreate those. So I ended up using this really cool wavy wall pattern it's like wall sculpture from the Dine Out pack. And I think it works out really well. It kind of like carries over the same sort of like visual energy that the original room has, but again, translate it for The Sims 4. So that's Garnet's room, and then now we're working on Amethyst's room. Amethyst's room, I use a lot of the same tricks here, where I lit the first floor below this, or the second level, I guess, second level basement floor below this, really purple, and then I raised up a bunch of rocks from below. And then we also use these really cool debug objects from the Get to Work pack, these sort of like molten blue rivers. Those were perfect for Garnet's room, not Garnet, Amethyst's room. And then she has a ton of crystals everywhere. And really the notable thing about Amethyst's room is that she collects everything. She collects everything under the sun. And so here I had to make some decisions because, again, I want this to be a playable space and I want this to be something that visually you can look at and sort of make sense of. So I didn't want to just go super over the top by throwing a bunch of objects down here, but I did want to create some sort of like concentrated areas that really felt like a hoarder lives here. We have sort of the tent poles in place here. There's a really like iconic shot of Amethyst's room where she has a huge telephone pole with a palm tree next to it. And then really we're just going to start working on piles and piles of objects. And then lastly, what we're going to do here is, again, I don't like creating spaces that have no purpose. And so I felt like it would make sense for each one of these rooms to have an intention behind it, aside from just being like a cool sort of inspired recreation of the rooms in the show. I wanted a reason for Sims to actually come down here. So each room has a different activity that your Sim can practice. And I tried to pick activities that made sense with each gem. So in Amethyst's room, your Sim can go down and learn a little bit about fitness because Amethyst was frequently teaching Steven how to fight. In Pearl's room, your Sim can go downstairs to learn to meditate because I feel like that's very akin to many of the lessons that Pearl taught Steven and Connie throughout the show. And then in Garnet's room, actually, here's how we changed the design a little bit. We shifted up. Instead of having a pool in the center, I added a dance floor. And I like this because I feel like Garnet really reminded Steven often to be a kid and enjoy being a kid and enjoy his boyhood and enjoy the unique and silly things that made him him. So I thought a dance floor was a really cute skill to have in Garnet's room. And you can see the way that I did that was I just put a small one-tile room in the center of the pool, which allowed me to place the dance floor right in the center of it. And it's actually functional. You can see my sim was dancing there. They'll dance on both the perimeter, or they also, if you want them to dance right in the center, they will hop into the pool and then hop up onto the center of the room that's there and dance right in the middle too. So you can use it in 2 different ways. And then yeah, here's kind of where I landed with the exterior as well. It was really hard to make this like look and feel unique. So one of the things I did is on the exterior of the house, I put some really big planters from the Eco Lifestyle pack because that felt like it was a good fit for the Steven Universe home. And then I also have these really beautiful pink flowers kind of growing up the wall, which kind of, in my mind, signifies and reminds us of Rose Quartz or Pink Diamond, however you would like to refer to her. But yeah, I really like that. And I did also include some thorns around that as well as kind of a nod to the Steven Universe movie and sort of a reminder of the grip that Rose Quartz had on this family. And then lastly, I just want to note that I have the cool little laundromat. I have the cool little laundry objects on the side of the house. I would have loved to have been able to create like a really cool big hand holding that laundry machine like in the show, but I thought it was a nice compromise to have it on the side of the house here too. So if you would like to use some laundry gameplay, we got it. It's on the side. And one more thing, I forgot to mention this. So I'm going to include a screenshot here. One cool thing about this lot is that if you go up to the 2nd floor and then put down the walls, you can see everything. So you can see the kitchen and the living area and Steven's bedroom all at once, which was really my goal, is that I really wanted to see, you know, the full kind of layout of the house without having to sacrifice, you know, visibility of Steven's bedroom. And so even though I had to put it on the 2nd floor, this does end up working out really well. So I was super happy with that. So yeah, that's my Steven Universe build. If you would like to download this build yourself, it is now available on the gallery. My name on the gallery is the same as it is here, which is just Patrick Creates. If you like this video, please feel free to give it a like, because that would be cool and I would appreciate that. And if you've made it this far, first of all, thank you, because it's a lot of time to spend with a stranger. Second off, please consider coming back next week. I upload videos almost every week, and if you hit the subscribe button, you'll be up to date the next time I launch a video. And the next one, assuming I get it done, the next one is a massive build. I did recently start using the community tab if you want a little sneak peek of what's to come. But yeah, the next build is really, really big, and I'm excited about it, and just like crunch time trying to get it done. So yeah, come back next week. It should be pretty cool. And that is it. That is all I have for today. So thank y'all, and until next time.